All right. Typically, I read Charles's bio, but it's part of his PowerPoint presentation. So we kind of went through, and he'll do his own introduction as we get started. But I will turn it over to Charles Pecchio, and he will give us a nightly presentation tonight on hiring for success. So thanks for being back on again, Charles, and we appreciate your time and effort.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Thank you, sir.
So we'll start with a little fun.
There's no jobs for manager, it's just for counter.
Good. I'm looking for the least possible amount of responsibility.
Mr. Huff, Mr. Jenner is ready for your interview.
Actually, we'll be interviewing as a team.
We're all in this together, and I wanted to put across the general idea rather than the details. Like, people get all hung up on details. Like, what school did I go to? How many O grades did I get? Could be like 6, could be none. It's not important. What is important is that I am, yes?
Do you have any special skills?
Oh, yes, I do. I do voices.
What are your skills, girls?
Oh, we can dance. You mean like dancing? We're really good dancers.
Yeah!
We've come to this planet looking for intelligent life. Oops, we made a mistake.
We're happy to be in America. Don't ask for a green card.
I want you in the worst way.
Mr. Matsuhisu.
Hasi.
Matsumoto.
Moto.
Martha, can I call you Martha?
No, you may not.
Okay.
Human resources lady.
Oh, you know, it's Pam.
I'm sorry. Well, Pan.
No, my name is Pam.
Are you saying Pan or Pam?
I'm saying Pam. Yeah, I'm sorry. Who's this gentleman sitting behind you?
Hello, Ms. Lady.
I have fast food experience.
Yeah, like 20 years ago.
Do you have any experience?
No, sir, I have no experience, but I'm a big fan of money. I like it. I use it. I have a little. I keep it in a jar on top of my refrigerator. I'd like to put more in that jar. That's where you come in.
We're not generally comfortable in an office setting, I would say.
I get cooped up.
Not so task-oriented, not a workhorse.
I also get headaches from computers, so I can't be around them for too long.
I take stuff.
If you're looking for a Clydesdale, I'm probably not your man.
We're slow learners, and we're not particularly good listeners. That'll be a huge problem.
We're also slow learners.
What's your policy on Columbus Day?
We work.
Really? The guy discovered the new world.
Nobody in this town works without a retainer, guys. You think you can find somebody who does, we tell you have my blessing. But I think we all know that person's not going to represent you as well as I can.
Will, our offer is $84,000 a year plus
Retainer. Retainer.
Let's do this, you know, you guys are hired. You're in, you know, unless you're like the weirdest guys ever and I don't see it.
Great.
I thank you for your time.
Actually, sir, I really need this job to impress a girl.
Will you leave now, please?
Please leave this office. We're done with this interview.
Do we get any sort of souvenir?
Get out of my office!
Hey, we tried, right?
Thanks a lot.
Get my resume.
Good evening.
A good way to start.
Yeah. I've had almost all of those things happen to me in interviews. I don't know how you guys have done, but when you hire, you want to hire for success. I'm Charlie Pecchio with Kingston Capital, and we help businesses succeed by providing consulting, training, management, strategic planning, capital, and ownership transition. Our most recent deal on July 1st, we recapitalized a company called Blue Line, which is an architectural company based in Harrisonburg, Virginia, with an office in Houston, and they're licensed to operate in 16 states. And I'm the new CEO of the company. And I'm having a really good time there. It's a great group of people. And as we were talking about before we started the presentation, it is about the people. It is about the team. And the question you may be asking yourself is, who is this guy and what gives him the right to talk to me about hiring for success? Now, some of you already know me. Some are already my clients. I was born at a very early age in a log cabin that I helped my father build. I had to walk several miles to school each day, uphill both ways. Actually, I was born in the South Bronx at the beginning of the baby boom, and I rode New York City buses to school. My dad worked 2 or 3 jobs to keep food on the table and clothes on our backs. He serviced cigarette machines, drove a taxi cab, shot pool one-handed. I think he made the most money shooting pool. I worked my way through Fordham Prep in college, funded by an academic scholarship in my first 2 businesses, which were vending machines. I actually had pistachio machines, penny and nickel pistachio machines, and I actually got the concession at my school for Pepsi machines and quarter pool tables. I went to college at nights and on the weekends. I worked on Wall Street. I was in finance at IBM and then in marketing. I started 2 companies in 1976, and within 5 years I sold them, and I've done many more. For 8 years, I was president of a Swiss venture capital company. That was loads of fun. My favorite gig there was we had a company called the Wine Exchange in Bordeaux, and I had to visit the wineries. And they would take me to their homes and feed me and bring out the wine they kept for themselves. That was really an experience. I've served as an officer and director of many private and public companies in the US, the UK, France, Germany, and Switzerland. I've got 45 plus years of deal making, including 3001, which was my biggest deal. We grew that from a 3-person survey company in Sulphur, Louisiana, to a Washington, DC Beltway geospatial company. I was CEO and vice chairman. I led the recapitalization of the company and expansion to over 300 employees through organic growth and 5 acquisitions prior to its sale to Northrop Grumman in 2008 for $105 million. Not bad for 3 guys in the back of an engineering company. You know, all of this taught me one thing. Nothing we do is more important than hiring and developing people. At the end of the day, you bet on people, not on strategies. Every time you make a hiring decision, you bet your company. According to the Harvard Business Review, 80% of turnover is due to bad hiring decisions. The question is, do you truly devote the time and effort required to hire long-term employees? Or do you just go through the motions? Do you have an effective process for recruiting and hiring? Often the bad choices we make are because we hired the person we liked the best. We trust our instincts way too much. Instincts are important and they should be part of the decision-making process, but they shouldn't be the only part. I have people working with me who have lasted longer than my 3 marriages combined. So that tells me that maybe I'm really good at recruiting and hiring, but maybe not so good at finding wives. I'll try to do better in the future. Experienced managers often use a combination of interviewing techniques to be sure that they're identifying the best persons for the job. A behavioral interview is a technique that's used by many hiring managers to help evaluate a candidate's future performance. This involves asking questions about the candidate's behavior in past situations that are related to what's required in the position you're trying to fill. These questions are used to assess the candidate in relation to the knowledge, abilities, skills, and other important competencies relevant to the job. And we're going to talk more about competencies. But before we get into that, I want to thank you for being here tonight, and I hope that you get the most out of this session and we enjoy our time together. The session has lots of information. For some of you, the information in this session will be too much. For some of you, the information will be too little. For some of you, it'll be just right. The participants in previous sessions said that they like the fact that the slides are very detailed so they can use them later. Many studies show that auditory is short-term. You remember it not for a whole long time. Visual is long-term, but both is best. And that's what I believe in. Let's look at the ground rules for this meeting. Although I won't talk about all the details on the slides, all of the slides are going to be provided to you and the recording will be available, so you won't have to remember it all or take a lot of notes. I don't think any of us has hyperthymesia. That's a highly superior autobiographical memory, like Mary Lou Henner from Taxi. You remember her? There are about 24 people in the world that have that. They remember every single moment of their lives and they can play it back. It's really amazing. You should check it out. There's some great stories on the internet, and there was a good story on 60 Minutes about it. The URLs for the videos are included in the slides so you can access them later. Please make comments, ask questions. or write down your questions and ask them later if they're not answered during the session. After the session, you can email me anytime and I'll reply. Please turn off your phone ringer, mute your microphone when you're not speaking. And there's the legal. Okay. Every business meeting must have goals, and its success should be measured against those goals. All too often we have a meeting and we have no goals for the meeting. We just get together because we're going to discuss something. You pick a topic, we have a meeting, but what comes of it? Well, every meeting should result in action items that identify who's accountable for accomplishing each item and in what time frame. And there should be a way to track the status and communicate with everyone involved that we're actually making progress toward those goals after the meeting. Now, this is an educational session. Every educational session, including this one, must have goals that include empowering the attendees, that's you guys, to do something. So this is the question that should be answered at the start of the session. What will you be empowered to do after this session? After the session, if you implement this approach, you'll be aware of a better way to recruit and hire employees. You'll be better at hiring the right candidates. You'll have fewer personnel issues to deal with. You'll spend less time overall on recruiting and hiring. You'll have happier employees who stay with the company longer, and your company will be more successful. Now, does that sound like why you're here and why you should pay attention? Okay, what are the steps in the hiring process? First, defining the position requirements. Next, recruiting qualified candidates. Third, establishing the interview process. Fourth, formulating the questions to ask that utilize the behavioral approach and STAR method. And we'll go into what those are later. Fifth, evaluate the candidates. Sixth, you have to create an offer letter. 7, you have to determine compensation. And then 8th, you want to make sure you hire the best candidate. So let's start with defining the position requirements. Let's start with the job description. Does it need to be updated? Do you have a job description? Hopefully you do for every job in the company. But you need to pull it out and take a look at it because the job may have changed since the last employee did it. Was the last person in the job right for the position, or was there a mismatch that you could have prevented by actually having a better job description? In answer to job postings or ads, you sometimes get resumes from applicants who seem to apply for all job postings. They don't really care what the position requirements are, they just apply. So in describing the position, you want to give enough specifics to attract the people you really want to attract. First, you need to define the required skills and competencies. And those are different. We'll talk about skills and we'll talk about competencies. You start with a list of the basic skills that the candidate must have and decide how you can confirm that the candidate has those skills. Is a diploma or a professional license sufficient, or do you need to test the candidate? More skills that are specific to the job may have to be taught after the candidate is hired, but you need to make sure the candidate has the basic skills needed. Let's look at skills. Skills are the specific learned abilities that a person needs to perform a given job well. What's a competency? A competency is the person's situational behavior and the capability to apply a set of related knowledge, skills, and abilities required to successfully perform critical work functions or tasks in a defined professional setting. So you have skills, and those skills then are used to get you a competency where you can use them in a particular situation. That's really what we want to do. Is we want to look at the competencies, and there are 50 of them or more, and we want to choose the ones that best represent what our company stands for and the essential characteristics needed to perform the job successfully. And then we want to also choose those competencies that are desired but not essential. So the ones that are nice to have. What do you absolutely have to have, and what would be nice to have? And we're talking about competencies. You can peruse this later. This actually shows you some competencies and associated skills, so you can see how they relate to each other. You have to have those basic skills, and then it develops into a competency. Okay, Let's look at what some of the top competencies are. Initiative. This is recognizing what needs to be done and then doing it before being asked or before the situation requires it. You say to yourself, well, how do I know that the candidate can do that? Well, we're going to have some questions later that will actually answer that question. Also, you want to be able to continue to go forward when things get tough. Initiative also means recognizing and taking advantage of opportunities that others might pass up. It's acting instead of reacting, being proactive. Let's look at fostering teamwork. That's a great competency. It's the desire and ability to work cooperatively with others on a team and creating a work culture that values collaboration. As a team leader, the ability to demonstrate interest, skill, and success in getting groups to learn to work together and support each other. It's using all the available resources and skills to reach business-wide goals. Competencies also include results-oriented. That's the ability to focus on the desired outcome, not just the process used to produce a product or deliver a service. At the same time, that person needs to identify the most effective and economical approach and process, and also set challenging goals, focusing on the required effort for accomplishing the goals and meeting or exceeding them. That's what being results-oriented is. Stress management, great competency. That's the ability to keep functioning effectively when under pressure and to maintain self-control in the face of hostility or provocation. Developing others, that's the ability to delegate responsibility and to work with others and coach, mentor them to develop their capabilities. Oral communication, the ability to express oneself clearly in conversations and interactions with others at every level. Okay, here are a group of competencies. And when you're looking at creating how you're going to assess a particular candidate, you'll go through all these competencies and select the ones that actually apply. So you can see there are lots here. And as I said, there are many, many more. Okay. So you want to make a list of the required competencies and then prioritize them. What's the most important thing in the particular job that you're looking at? And this is after the skills. Yes, they have to have the basic skills. Yes, they have to have the training. They have to have the education. But you can have a bunch of people that all qualify as far as the skills are concerned, but if they can't handle themselves in situations, then they're not going to be that valuable to the company. So you want to make that list of required competencies and prioritize them. You want to make that list of the desired competencies and prioritize those. And then you want to use these lists to determine the questions to ask and then score the candidate's answers to those questions. So here are some sample behavioral questions. I've got many, many, many questions in this presentation, a lot of which I'm not going to go through tonight, but they'll be there for you to go back. My clients that use this, before they hire somebody, they actually get together and they go through these and create these lists and then go through and get the questions that they need. And we'll talk about what you do with those questions here in a minute. Competency 1, teamwork. Okay. You can ask somebody to talk about a time when they had to work closely with someone whose personality was different from theirs. You can say, give me an example of a time you faced a conflict while working on a team. How did you handle it? Tell me about a time you needed to get information from someone who wasn't very responsive. What did you do? Have you ever dealt with company policy you weren't in agreement with? How? Have you had to convince a team to work on a project they weren't thrilled about? How did you do it? I've been there many times. Have you been in a situation where you disagree with your boss? No, none of us ever disagrees with our boss. So, well, what did you do? All those questions will give you insight into those people. Competency 2, problem solving. Give me an example of a time when you had to be quick in coming to a decision. Tell me about the last time you had to act on an issue for which there was no formal procedure on how to handle it. How do you approach a task that you've never done before? On occasion, we've all been asked to perform tasks to accomplish a goal where the instructions are ambiguous. Tell me about a time where this happened to you and what you did to achieve the goal. Have you ever been caught unaware by a problem or obstacle you had not foreseen? What happened? Tell us about a time when you did something completely different from the plan and or assignment. Why and what happened? Competency 3, communication skills. Describe a time when you were the resident technical expert. What did you do to make sure everyone was able to understand you? Give me an example of a time at work when you were able to successfully persuade someone who disagreed with you to see things your way. Tell me about a time when you had to rely on written communication to get your ideas across to your team. Give me an example of a time when you had to explain something fairly complex to a frustrated client or team member. How did you handle this delicate situation? Tell me about a successful presentation you gave and why you think it was a hit. Competency 4, leadership. Describe the most challenging group from which you had to gain cooperation. Was there a time when a project didn't have a leader, but you took charge? Why did you take charge? What did you do? What has been the toughest project you had to lead? Why was it difficult? For you, what is the most difficult part of being a leader, and what do you do about that? What's been your greatest achievement as a leader, and what are you most proud of? What's an example of a time when you motivated your team? How did you do it? How effective were your efforts, and why were you successful? Okay, so in defining the requirements for the job, what is the experience level needed? Do we need people with a minimum number of years in the job? Has practice shown that 1 or 2 years is enough, or do you require more? Obviously, the more experience you ask for, the more expensive the candidate is likely to be. What is the budget for the position? Typically, your company will have a budget for the recruiting process itself, how much you can spend on ads or job postings, how much staff time and resources you can occupy, how long the process should take, all of which may determine how long you have to spend on filling the position. And is there a budget for what kind of compensation has been set for the open position? In many cases, there'll be a range. You'll certainly try to get the best deal you can with get the person with the most relevant experience at the right price. But it does no good to select a great candidate who demands a salary of $90,000, only to be told later you can't pay more than $60,000. So know how much you can afford going into the interviews. How do you create effective job postings and advertising? Well, you need to describe the position. And an effective job description typically contains 2 components: a summary of the role and the job responsibilities. You should only highlight the most significant information in these sections so that the description is succinct and easy to digest. Although content is important in a job posting, the job seekers will become overwhelmed and disinterested if your stuff is way too much information for them to handle. Number 1, you want to summarize the role. The position overview is typically written in paragraph form, and it gives the job seekers a general idea of what they'll be doing day to day. It's important that you talk directly to the job seeker. Don't say the incumbent or the right candidate. This will make the job feel more personal, and it'll encourage the potential candidates to actually envision themselves performing the job. Excuse me, and consider the target age group, if any, and use the right wording to appeal to them. Okay, how do you create effective job postings and advertising? Summarizing the role, we're continuing that. Keep your statements short, but don't be afraid to incorporate descriptive words to make them more interesting and exciting. You may also want to explain why this job is such a great opportunity and how the role ultimately helps your company achieve its mission. So, especially nowadays, people like to actually be part of a successful company and know why and how they're contributing. Here's some examples. Here's an ineffective statement. The incumbent will handle all receptionist duties, including greeting clients. This is an effective way to say it. You will serve as the first impression for our executive offices. Ineffective. This position is responsible for generating sales and servicing clients. Effective. You will actively close sales, provide exceptional customer service, and become an integral component of our progressive team environment. Next, you list the job responsibilities. Highlight the 5 most essential job duties. Use bullet points so that job seekers can quickly scan them. Start each responsibility with a to be verb rather than an ing verb to make your statements more powerful. This is ineffective. Duties include supporting VP level management and above, making travel arrangements, calendar management, scheduling, procurement, meeting notes, assist in producing PowerPoint presentations, filing, typing, setting up meetings to include arrangements for food, etc. This is the effective way to say that. Manage and coordinate the schedules for executive management. Make reservations for flight and hotel accommodations. Perform administrative responsibilities, including taking notes during meetings, preparing correspondence, and managing files. Assist with production of sales presentations. Do you see the difference? Assist with special projects as assigned. Make it easy to read. You want to have enough information for it to appear attractive and thorough, but you want to avoid highlighting tasks that are not essential functions of the job. If you just put out a laundry list of things that are similar, it's going to get tedious, so you should summarize those. This is ineffective. The incumbent for this job will have experience with Word, Excel, PowerPoint access, typing, filing, maintaining file system, data entry, taking notes in meetings, and completing general office duties as assigned. Here's the effective way to say that. If you're the right person for this opportunity, you will have previous experience using Microsoft Office and providing administrative support to a busy executive. Put it in a positive way. You want to provide the qualifications and skill requirements. You're going to list the required skills. This is technical skills, educational experience, and achievements, and work experience that are absolutely necessary to perform the job. Then you want to list the skills that may not be mandatory, but are desired in the ideal candidate. Preferred skills maybe will include additional education or experience, background in a specific industry, or familiarity with using certain software. Here's an ineffective statement. Bachelor's degree in a field appropriate to the area of assignment and 5 years of related administrative experience, including 3 years of supervisory experience, or 9 years of related administrative experience, including 3 years of supervisory experience, or any equivalent combination of education and or experience from which comparable knowledge, skills, and abilities have been achieved. Here's the effective way to say that. Relevant bachelor's degree or equivalent combination of education and experience. 5 years of related administrative experience, 3 years of supervisory experience, ability to adapt to a changing environment and handle multiple priorities, excellent writing and analytical skills. CRM experience, a plus. So much easier to understand, so much more straightforward. You want to share the organizational values and cultures in the posting. So in addition to the education and experience, cultural fit obviously is important when it comes to selecting the appropriate candidate for the open position. Highlight your company's mission, vision, and values so that the candidate can actually gain insight into your company and what it's all about. Include the key attributes of your company culture and your workplace to paint a picture of what it's like to work for you. List any personality traits that are common among your most successful team members. Here's an example. At ABC Company, we use our brand and marketing expertise to help companies throughout the U.S. establish and promote their brands. When you visit our vibrant office buildings in Houston, Texas, you will find our driven, efficient, and analytical team creating strategic solutions for our clients. Our team members are passionate about growth, innovation, and collaboration. We're constantly striving to improve and better ourselves so that we can better support our clients. If you have a growth mindset and you thrive under pressure, you're probably a great fit for our team. Okay, where might you find employees that have the qualities you want? So veterans are a great place to start. Almost every state has some kind of program for veterans. This is the Operation Palmetto, which is in South Carolina. And you can see that they really, really want employers to hire the military, the ex-military. And here's their vision and mission, their goals, and you need to search for the program in your state, okay? They have contacts, they want you to call them, they want you to hire veterans. Hiring veterans is a win-win for business. Not only do they bring with them soft skills, but they also bring technical skills that they learned in their military jobs. And there are programs that give your business tax credits for qualifying individuals or actual repayment of some of their wages. There's a work opportunity tax credit, and you can get up to $9,600 per year for each qualified employee. It's a simple program. You hire the individuals appropriate for the job, you fill out a small amount of paperwork, and you get the tax credit. There's on-the-job training and apprenticeships and apprenticeship opportunities that give participants hands-on training they need and give employers wage assistance. There's the VRE program that has special benefits and tax credits and incentives from the Department of Veterans Affairs. The South Carolina Department of Employment Workforce, they have several valuable training programs. And as I say, a lot of states actually offer financial incentives. So check the federal programs and your state programs and get involved with the local veterans organizations. So where else can you find qualified candidates? Should you hire relatives and friends? Yes or no? Depends. Let's see. I have, and you know, I actually had to fire my sister at one point, and I told her, I said, you need to go home. You're still on the payroll, but I'll save more money sending you home and continuing to pay you than having you here. Now, I love my sister, don't get me wrong, but I never really should have hired her. I should have just started paying her. And, you know, it's worked out. It's been many years since I had to let her go. When 2001, 9/11 hit, and I had to lay off people, the first person I laid off was my wife. Actually, my ex-wife now. Maybe that wasn't such a good idea. Well, in any case, and I actually had a client who brought in his best friend from his youth to join the company as operations manager. His wife and he owned the company, and they brought in his best friend. And fast forward a few years later, and his wife ran off with his best friend. So that didn't work out. So should you bring in your spouse or significant other? That's a tough call. Now, my first wife was a great accountant, and she was a CPA, and she was actually chief financial officer for 3 of the companies that I had and did a great job. So it can work, but you need to be careful. One of my partners brought in his dad, and we had to fire him. So we talked about veterans organizations. What about schools? I've had good luck going to schools. You establish a relationship with the college professors or even high school teachers, alumni associations. You know, and you can get this information from your employees and and their families. Create an intern program. Even at the high school level, get people interested in surveying. we're not creating enough surveyors for the future. You know, the average age of a surveyor is 60. That's crazy. We need to work on youth and get them interested. And there are some colleges, some junior colleges, some technical colleges that you can go to where you can actually create a program and you can get and have them as a source of employees. Put together a job fair with other local employers. Obviously on your website, you want to always advertise jobs on your website. You want to go to professional organizations and make sure that they're sending you candidates. And if you have to, there are professional recruiters. The key to professional recruiters is negotiate a deal. Don't just accept whatever percentage they say they're going to take, whatever their fee is. You can negotiate a much better deal, and sometimes they can be a really good source, especially if you're hiring for experienced people, for higher level people. You know, they typically will focus on those because obviously the fees are higher, but you want to negotiate those percentages. I just did one 2 months ago. Okay. Step 3 is establishing the interview process. The people involved in the interview process will include someone first to sort the resumes as they come in and recommend only the qualified candidates, to the hiring manager, to whom the new employee will be reporting, the manager to whom the hiring manager reports, and at least one other manager or senior employee. You have to have at least 3 people that are going to interview qualified candidates and who would get the information on those candidates. Don't do a group interview. Some of you may think that's the way to go. I don't believe that it is. Multiple people asking questions can be intimidating to the candidates, and the candidate is much more likely to open up and be honest to a single interviewer than to a group. What you want to do is you want to assign someone the task of checking each candidate's social media and sharing those results with everyone. Yes, it may be considered cyber stalking, but you find out some really interesting things, especially if they've been posting about their current or past employer. Each interviewer should be assigned a designated list of questions that they're going to ask that utilize the behavioral approach and the STAR method. And they should ask each candidate that same set of questions. So each interview should be scheduled for about 30 minutes. And as I say, the interviewer should have that set of questions that the interviewer is going to ask prepared in advance. And then the interviewer should score the candidates on each answer using a scale of 1 lowest to 5 highest, and make notes about each answer and the candidate in general. If you have more than one candidate, schedule the interviews to occur simultaneously. Have each of the candidates meet with each of the interviewers on a round-robin basis. After the interviews are complete, all the interviewers should meet and share results and opinions. Right then, rank the candidates and come to a decision on which candidate to hire. So behavioral interviewing is going to predict future behavior, good or bad. So this is the way that you use actual past behavior to more accurately determine the future performance or success of the individual. This technique has been proven in many studies. And this kind of interview is based on the concept that the way a candidate acted in the past is the single best indicator of future behavior. Behavioral interview questions ask a candidate to describe in detail, using concrete examples from real life experience, how they've demonstrated the specific skills required for the job they'll be doing at your company. Your goal as an interviewer is to bring to the surface behavioral patterns so you can evaluate whether the candidate is a good fit. Traditional questions such as what are your strengths and weaknesses and how do you define success are more generic with straightforward answers that can be rehearsed. Those are not the questions you want to ask. These behavioral questions are going to give you stronger comparisons between candidates that'll help you assess their approach to the position. So if you're hiring a sales manager, you want a leader who can support your sales people during good and bad times. So asking candidates about a time they had to motivate an underperforming sales team can give you a better idea of how they overcame an important challenge and therefore how they might approach a similar situation at your company. You want to listen for a success story that illustrates that the candidate quickly identified the problem, came up with a plan to improve the situation with the sales team's input, and implemented the plan and showed positive results. Let's talk about the STAR method. This is a structured manner of asking these behavioral-based questions by discussing a specific situation, a task, action, and result of the situation. So the S is situation. Ask the candidates to describe a specific event or situation, not a generalized description of what they've done in the past, and ask them to give enough detail for you to understand it. Then ask them what goal they were working toward, what they were trying to do, that's the task, and then the action. Ask them to describe the specific actions they took to address the situation with an appropriate amount of detail, keeping the focus on the candidates and what their particular contribution was, not what the team or group did. And the result, ask the candidates to describe the outcome of their actions and to not be shy about taking credit for their individual behavior, because we're trying to find out about the individual. And then what happened? How did the event end? What was accomplished? And what did the candidates learn? Let's focus on a few questions for 4 of the most popular competencies and testing those competencies. Teamwork. Ask the candidate to talk about a time when you had to work closely with someone whose personality was very different from yours. Give me an example of a time you faced a conflict while working on a team. How did you handle that? Tell me about a time you needed to get information from someone who wasn't very responsive. What did you do? Have you ever dealt with company policy you weren't in agreement with? How did you handle it? Have you had to convince a team to work on a project they weren't thrilled about? How did you do it? Have you ever been in a situation where you disagree with your boss? What did you do? Let's look at competency 2 and some questions. Problem solving. Give me an example of a time when you had to be quick in coming to a decision. Can you tell me about the last time you had to act on an issue and there was no formal procedure on how to do so? How do you approach a task that you've never done before? That's a good one. On occasion, we've all been asked to perform tasks to accomplish a goal where the instructions are ambiguous. Can you tell me about a time that this happened to you and what you did to achieve the goal? Have you ever been caught unaware by a problem or obstacles you had not foreseen? What happened? Tell us about a time when you did something completely different from the plan and or assignment. Why and what happened? Let's look at communication skills. Describe a time when you were the resident technical expert. What did you do to make sure everyone was able to understand you? Give me an example of a time when you were able to successfully persuade someone to see things your way. Tell me about a time when you had to rely on written communication to get your ideas across to your team. Give me an example of a time when you had to explain something fairly complex to a frustrated client or team member. How did you handle this delicate situation? And tell me about a successful presentation you gave and why you think it was a hit. So, leadership, okay? And we've got lots more. Some of these obviously will be repetitious, but you want to go through them. You want to look at all of these and you want to see what it's going to tell you. Like this one, describe a situation where you had to collaborate with a difficult colleague. A superior candidate will demonstrate professionalism and attitude and communication style when dealing with others. Problem solving and conflict resolution skills are the key. Good candidates don't need to like everybody, but they must be capable of working with everybody. So when you go back and you refer to this, read these sections and see what it is that the question will provide to you in terms of insights into the person's competencies. Okay? Now, obviously, the best way to, stop backing up. The best way to predict the future is to create it, okay? In terms of hiring the best candidate, after using the behavioral approach and the STAR method to interview and rank the candidates, your discussion about the candidate should focus on the competencies essential for the success in the position. Okay. If there's no clear winner, you want to narrow the field down to the top 2 or 3 candidates. You want to create a list of follow-up questions to ask each of them that will help you determine your final choice. And then you want to either bring them back for another interview or set up video calls so you can ask these questions. Also, you may want to ask each of them to submit a written description of what will happen during their first 90 days of employment. We just did this with a vice presidential candidate, and it was really interesting. You get a lot of insight into the person when you ask them to create a written description of what's going to happen during their first 90 days of employment. We found a great candidate this way. He was very clear and concise, addressed all of the issues that should be addressed, put them into categories, and had just enough detail to communicate a great plan for getting off to a wonderful start and hitting the ground running. All too often, we don't ask the candidate to write something. I think it's important to do that, especially in some of the jobs that we're hiring for. And remember, don't rely only on your instincts and just hire the candidate you like the best. You want to hire the best candidate. So here's a list of 20 positive traits. And if you're still trying to decide who to hire, go through these and compare each candidate to these traits. Is the person ambitious? Are they autonomous? Have you asked them questions that show that they can actually work on their own? Do they like to collaborate? Can they collaborate? Do they believe in teamwork? Are they committed to performing their jobs well and the success of the company? By the answers that they give you to the questions, you'll know that. And are you putting them into a job where they need to communicate on a regular basis? If they need to communicate effectively, either through voice or in writing, you need to make sure they can do that. You need to test them. Are they confident? Do they come across as feeling like they know what they're doing? Are they creative? And there are questions that will tell you whether or not they're creative. Are they detail-oriented? Obviously, in some of the technical jobs, we want to make sure they're detail-oriented. And so there are ways to test them on that. Are they enthusiastic? And when you ask them questions about what they're doing now, do they have enthusiasm for their current job? Do they speak highly of past employers? Are they hardworking? Or are they asking you about time off? Are they honest? Do they have integrity? So all of these are important. You got to decide which ones are the most important and make sure you've asked questions that will reveal how the candidate stacks up. Do they have humility? Or are they always bragging about themselves? Are they arrogant? Some people that are very capable in doing their job just can't get along with other people because of their personality. Are they inquisitive? What kind of questions have they asked you about your company? Are they a leader? And by how they've answered some of those leadership questions, you'll know whether or not that person will be a strong leader for your business. And are they marketable? Not every position, is front-facing to customers, but many are. So you need to know that people that interact with the public can do that and represent you well, both from a professional demeanor and from in terms of their appearance and grooming. Are they organized? Okay. Are they passionate? The thing that impresses me most about the companies I get involved with is the passion of the people. It's walking into an organization and feeling the passion that permeates the organization, watching how they work, watching their facial expressions, watching their body language, seeing how they interact with each other. Are they positive? I mean, you want to maintain a culture of positivity, and you want employees that are going to do that. Are they proactive? Are they going to actually try to identify potential issues before they're asked to do that and solve problems before they arise? And are they reliable? Okay. Now, in some cases, you may not get all the answers you need from the interviews, but you may get it when you check references, because you need to check references. You should never hire somebody without checking references. Sure, they're going to give you references that they've already talked to, where they've prepared them to tell you what it is you want to hear. But I always like to ask the reference, who else can I talk to about the candidate? So I can actually find some other person to speak with, maybe some other friend or company or person in the organization. When I was being vetted for my top secret clearance, they went to my ex-wives, my former neighbors, and asked them those questions, asked them who else knows me. They spent 30 minutes with my doctor asking questions. Now, I'm not saying we should do that, but it's important that you check somebody out. That's why earlier I said, go out on the internet and check somebody out. You'll find out an awful lot about a person now because of what's out there and what Google can find for you. Also, Google their phone number. You'll find ads that they've placed. You'll find organizations that they belong to where they've posted their phone number as a contact. You'll see some of the really good work that some of these people are doing that they didn't tell you about. So you can learn an awful lot now, obviously, through the internet. Okay, so now that you've spent some time on this topic, what are you going to do? Are you empowered after this session? Do you believe that if you implement this approach, you'll be aware of a better way to recruit and hire employees? You'll be better at hiring the right candidates. You'll have fewer personnel issues to deal with. You'll spend less time overall on recruiting and hiring. You'll have happier employees who stay with the company longer, and your company will be more successful. As I said earlier, the best way to predict the future is to create it. So, questions?
That was fast for 73 slides.
Yeah, and I could go into more of them.
Yeah, no, that's great. But
I think this, you have to go back and you have to spend some time with it. Here's what I recommend. What I recommend is that you actually take time with a cup of coffee. Okay.
Yep.
And spend 1 cup of coffee per day reviewing the slides. So each day, go back to the slides and do 1 cup of coffee's worth.
That's good stuff. There's a couple of good things in the chat, and Jeff Murphy says, I needed this presentation a couple months ago before I jumped headfirst into managing our hiring process without any experience. So there's your new one moving forward there, Jeff. Cup of coffee, and I'll put the slides in the PowerPoint. after Charles sends them to me tonight, and I'll put them in the Dropbox part of the folder.
Wow, look at this. 94%.
Okay. I'm trying to get back to my controls here.
No worries.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Yep.
Yeah, a couple other ones. Jason Lord said, similar question to be asked a serious candidate. What does my success within your company organization look like, and what support will you provide me in the learning process? So, some good stuff.
So they're asking, the candidate is asking what the candidate's success will be?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
That's a good question.
Yep.
That's a good question from a candidate.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great one. Another one from Leaf. Yeah, and I think I think he's saying basically it's not happening in our industry because we're all smaller companies with not a lot of survey companies have a full HR department, right? So being intimidated sitting in a room with multiple people in an interview process and that kind of stuff. So being a smaller company, usually it's just one-on-one with the guy who's hiring and signing the front of the check, I guess is one way to put it. But
there's nothing wrong with having a peer interview him.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you have other people at the same level. That's okay.
Trent.
That's okay. Because what it also gives that person is the ability to ask about the job that person's doing. So by actually sitting with someone who's doing the job now, they can ask questions and say, well, what do you do on a daily basis? How does it start out? What do you think of the company? I mean, it gives them a real perspective and may actually close the deal and get them on board.
Right. Go for it, Lee.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I hear you. I see you unmuted. Go for it, Lee.
Yeah. Out of my 40 years here in California surveying, I think I've worked for maybe 2 companies, and the first one I started was just me and another surveyor, and maybe very small amount other than that. Most of the time it's with companies that are 10 to 30 plus, and even up to thousands of employees.
Yeah.
And you basically right away you're gone to the human resource department. They don't, not the individual who's looking for you, but you reach out to the human resource department. And like I said, they're not always in tune with what it takes to be a surveyor.
Right.
They're gonna go through a few items that their survey department or their surveyor manager has offered them and say, here's the basic thing, we go over this. So and through that process and a lot of the times just even going through those few questions, and you don't get a response back, you don't get anything back from these individuals, you're just dropped. And that really puts a thing on people about getting hired and that perspective as well. So
yeah,
it's tough. You got to get out there, you got to keep pushing it and do whatever, send back emails, responding saying, hey, I haven't heard from you, or what's going on, that kind of. So but most of the points you've brought up, Charles, are it's extremely down the line. Yes, as an owner to looking for people, yeah, and as a person that's in a managerial position, yes, you need to do that. But you gotta, it's hard right now. It's hard to find people that are knowledgeable. It's hard to find people that want to be a part of this and look at it from that perspective. A lot of people just look at it as a temporary job, and there's something better comes around because they're not educated fully, not classically educated or whatever. They just, all of a sudden go. And then the I brought it up earlier.
Yeah.
A lot of years, nepotism has been a big
Yep.
Nepotism was a big thing. My son's not doing well, I put him to work in the field, but here we go. And then, it can go 50-50 with that.
Yeah. The one of the keys too about the number of people in the interview, and I see some comments about that. I know group interview might be for certain public employers, where they're worried about the legal side of things. I still feel like that's intimidating to a candidate. And I feel like you get a much more honest answer if you have a one-on-one interview. It's just more personal, and I don't like to sit behind a desk and have somebody across the desk from me. You should be seated where you're equal, you know, in a seating arrangement where there are two chairs. There can be a table, but you should be equal. Shouldn't be that kind of situation where on opposite sides of a desk.
I think I put it in Rob. I was communicating with Rob, but Rob will tell you he's a public agency employee here in California. And normally you're looking at 3 to 4 other people across a table from you, and they're all this, that. And I'm sure they all have their characteristics of different departments and, you know, where they might be able to place you best. I don't know. Normally you go in for a certain position and they say, well, maybe he has more talent than this, and we can offer it that way. But it can be, you know, like you're in front of a judicial panel going, hey,
yeah,
that type of thing. So, you know, I've always liked the one-on-one. I just did a group with a firm. I've been retired and I'm coming back into the workforce now. And I did an interview, and we got on Microsoft Teams.
Yeah.
Finally, you know, and I got to deal with the guys here in California, and it worked out well. You know, it's funny though that there are those aspects, and you know, each one is a challenge, of course, right?
Right.
Yeah, good stuff. Anybody have specific questions that they want to talk to Charles about? And then I want to, while somebody's unmuting themselves, I want to acknowledge PETA. She's made Mentoring Mondays international because she's joining us from Australia on Tuesday morning on Mentoring Mondays.
Hi, Ken. How you going?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Good
Thought
to
I'd
see you on.
try and see what happens over there in America.
That's right.
So,
exactly.
So is there anything really different in Australia?
Oh, no, not when it comes to what you were talking about with the employment sort of stuff. We seem to have a lot of issues over here, as you do over in America and England for that. You know, so I get to see a lot of things all across the globe when it comes to the surveying and the challenges and issues that we all have.
Exactly.
Yeah. The biggest challenge, obviously, is getting new people into the industry.
Yes.
And it's our obligation to do that. We need to go to schools. We need to convince schools to have programs. We need to have internships in our organizations, you know, for young people to come in and learn. That's really critical. I would love to see someone actually start up an organization that provided classes specifically to train new surveyors.
Well, funny you say that.
Exactly. Let PETA tell you she's got something going in Australia similar.
Well,
yeah.
Can I jump in right before PETA takes over?
Go for it.
My understanding of people who are surveyors and engineers over in Australia, they're held in very high regard. There's not, you know, like you're just guy, you know, and neighbors yell at you and all that. They're very established and well-performed professional authority there, and that's quite different than it is over here in the United States. So I just, you know, throw that in real fast.
There you go.
Yeah, thanks, Leif. Yeah, it is. Our system does. You know, I've been trying to work out how it all works in America because it is a lot different in the education system and people working in America. We have people over here who don't have qualifications, but we sort of have 2 levels of qualifications in Australia. We have a vocational, which is a diploma level, and then you have the university degree where you become a graduate surveyor and then in turn licensed or registered. You have to go to uni to be able to become licensed or registered in Australia, and you can only do boundary work if you are licensed or registered. So I sort of work in that vocational area where I'm just starting up an academy because It's just so challenging over here. We have a lot of people who want to do qualifications, but they can't get into systems, or they're working in companies and can't travel to come to the educational areas to do the education to get their diplomas. So we're looking from an industry point of view how to deliver to these people so that they can gain qualifications through traineeships and things like that. So I'm setting a program up at the moment for that. Also do a fair bit with the Get Kids into Survey, and we have a task force who we try and go out to schools or get it out there to the younger people and their parents and community as to what a surveyor is and the possibilities of doing a qualification, of where it can take you and the different areas and niches that you can do within the surveying industry. In a nutshell.
Right? Yeah, that's good stuff. And
now,
can I jump in real quick again? Just for all of you that don't know, here in Orange County in Southern California at San Diego College, they are starting up their survey program. It actually started yesterday, and then it's moving on, and it'll be through 8 August through December. And if anybody wants it, in the area or anything, you can get a hold of San Diego College, and you can get involved in that program, which is, basically Mark Counts is quite involved in that, or was, and then he, set it up. So anyhow, just thought I'd let everybody know that they're doing classes right now.
Perfect.
That's awesome.
Great. Now, there are some things in the slides that I did not go through. The offer letter, for example, okay, which speaks for itself. There's an example in there, and you can read it. I don't want to waste your time going through things that you can actually just look at and get the same thing, same effect. So
perfect. Anybody else have any more questions?
Yeah, this is Joe Paiva.
Yeah, go Dr. Paiva.
I just wanted to throw out something about people who may be on this program who are not necessarily thinking about interviewing as an employer or hirer, but rather somebody looking for a job. And I hope that if any of you are in that situation, you got a lot out of Charles's talk, because if you can put yourself in the shoes of the person interviewing you, you have a lot of potential to proactively give the interviewer dynamite information that can make you look like a star hire to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great point. Yep.
Great point. And beyond that, how about when a client is interviewing you? Use the same behavioral approach where you talk about things you've done in the past that will predict your future behavior. So when they ask you a question about how you're going to do something, it's so much better if you actually have an example of how you did it in the past, and use that behavioral approach by turning it around the other way.
Yeah, good point.
Just tell them you can make lots of money for them.
Yeah.
Jeff Murphy says, do you have any processes to quickly catch if a new hire isn't working out? A backup system for initial hiring system?
So you're asking about how do you weed out somebody quickly?
Yep.
I mean, you should always have, obviously a probationary period, where you can let the employee go, and you do need to monitor the employee when that employee comes on board, and check to make sure that the employee is what you think that employee said he or she was. Okay. But, in terms of actually having a system for doing it, well, you kind of sort of have to snoop, unfortunately. Emails are a great way to see how somebody's doing, because everybody's emailing everybody else. And company emails are open for the employer to look at. And so you can actually see what's going on. But more than that, what I have in every company I'm involved with is I have a weekly reporting system. The weekly reporting system is really simple. It's a one-page report that has 3 sections. The first section is what I accomplished in the past week. Second is what are my goals for the coming week. The third section is comments, concerns, obstacles, opportunities. So you want needle moving events, bullet points. It can't go over 1 page. Okay. And there are 3 to 5 entries in each of those sections. Sometimes there are no entries in the last section because there are no issues and no opportunities this week. But each week you put in there, what are my top 3, 4, 5 things that I'm going to get done in the coming week? Then the next week, those should move to what I accomplished for the week. And so I take the next week's report and I compare it to last week's report. And I want to see that the things that were plans for this week from last week are actually accomplished this week. Okay. Every employee does it. It moves up a level every half day, meaning at the end of the week, let's say the week ends on Sunday. Okay. Sunday night, the first level would do it. So Monday morning, the second level gets it. Then lunchtime Monday, the second level sends it up to the next level. And then Monday evening, it goes to the next level up. So that by Tuesday, that report's gone all the way up the organization. What I found is if there are any issues that are reported in the report, by Tuesday, they're all fixed because they know it's going to the owner or the CEO, okay, on Tuesday. And so if those issues get fixed on Monday because they're in the reports. But that's how you can know if something's going on. And I read all the reports from the organization. So when one of my organizations sends in weekly reports, they go up the chain, okay? And then they all get to me and I'll go through them. And since it's bullet points, it's 1 page at a time, it does not take very long to go through it.
Charles, can I ask a question?
Go for it.
What do you think, what is your, I don't want to say total standard, but what is your standard period of time for a person to transition to the position that you're hiring them for?
How long does it take them to settle in? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because 90% of the time we're looking for party chiefs. People below a party chief level or a standard field position, those are, here, maybe they'll come around and get it. But the responsibility person of your field crew is a chief.
Yeah.
And, the same as in your office, there's a department manager or whatever.
Right.
What is normally your standard time to allow for that individual before you address the situation of, hey, maybe you're not cutting it, maybe you are, we'd like to move you to this, we'd like to do this with you.
Well, I like to check with people often. And so at the end of the first day, okay, find out how the day went. At the end of the first week, find out how the week went. At the end of the first month, how did the first month go? If you do that, and then you check, and you have the weekly reports coming in, and then you check each month, by 3 months at the most, that person should be rocking and rolling and should really be doing well in the position.
What we would call a probationary time is usually 90 days for most of us.
Exactly. And they should be within that time period.
Do you also review other employees to ask how they're getting along, doing whatever?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Constantly. Yeah. And one of the things I ask all the time is, are you having a good time? That's how I start the conversation. That gets them smiling. And they'll say yes, or sometimes they'll say no. And I'll say, well, why not?
Well, that's probably about the only thing that keeps all of us going, including Trent. Are we having a good time doing what we're doing?
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. We're passionate about what we do. We love doing it. So you want to have a good time, and you want your employees to have a good time. You want them to enjoy it. If they're not enjoying it, they're not going to do it well. If they're enjoying it, they'll do it well. Okay, and each employee should have a personal development plan. In my companies, we sit down with each employee and we go through a personal development plan. Where does that person want to be and when? And how can that person get there? What's going to be required in terms of education, training? What are the job milestones? How long might it take? When I went to work for IBM many years ago, they said, where do you want to be in the future? I said, well, I want to be president of the company. And they said, okay, well, let's see if we can develop a plan for that. And they developed a 25-year plan for me to become president of IBM. Do you believe that?
At 64, it's hard to tell people where I want to be with their company, type thing. But for younger people, that's something that, and a lot of small companies don't have the time and ability. They're trying too hard to make money, trying to establish themselves. It's something that's difficult for a lot of people to look at, your perspective. And I appreciate it. I totally agree with you 100%. But it's difficult for a lot of these smaller firms and the individuals running them to take the time and really understand that. They're too busy trying to make the quota, do this and that. And it really is tough for an individual to come into this profession and think he's doing the right thing.
Yeah.
When he's not getting nothing and everybody's jumping on him and all this. And I think this thing that Trent's offered with mentoring that's what it's about. Trying to show people, hey, yeah.
Yep.
Understand that thing. So anyhow, I totally appreciated your presentation, and I totally agree with it 100%. So.
Thank you. So one of the things I do also is take an employee to lunch. Okay, you should at least once a month pick an employee and take that employee to lunch.
Yeah, okay. the things we used to do in the past about employees.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't work so well now.
I know. But we have to do that. We have to take the time to actually know our people.
I work for Stantec, and I think most of you are aware of who Stantec is. They're a large international firm. And
definitely.
Before they were Keys companies, some of the larger firms I've worked for, Davidson in the past, once a month they would try to do something for the employees, especially the survey department, that type of thing. So, I always enjoyed it, and I was always happy about it. But, it changes. It's difficult to do, and some people don't understand it. But that is a good, positive.
Yeah, exactly. So back to your just your forms. What is it required to fill them out every week?
Yes.
Okay. And
weekly report is required every week. Yeah. Yeah. You have to turn it in. And if you're on vacation, you just say on vacation. Okay. But you have to turn it in. It's gonna be checked off that it came in. Okay. Yeah. And also I say you can't get fired for anything you put on there. So in that last section, if you really want to complain, go ahead.
There you go.
I was going to say, Trent, you don't have to file one because you were gone last weekend.
That's right. What's the consequences for somebody not filling out the form?
Well, if they don't fill out the form, okay,
you just have them down until they fill it out.
First off, their supervisor gets in trouble. Okay. and so the supervisor will go to them and say, hey, you need to fill this out because I'm in trouble.
Got it.
Okay. And I've seen the supervisor sit down with the employee and say, okay, let's do this together. And I'll show you how easy it is. And they go through it and they say, okay, see now all you have to do is now next week, the stuff that you have here in your plans, that's going to be what you actually got done. And so you're just going to cut and paste that up here. And then you're going to put in a few more things that you're going to do next week.
Yeah.
Really, if it takes you more than 20 minutes, you're drinking in between.
Yeah.
I actually think even on a minor scale, that's a good thing to have in a company because it just, here, you're getting feedback instead of pulling everybody off to the side and checking with them. Yeah. Even in management meetings, nobody wants to say, well, I got, do that. It gives you a one-on-one personal thing, and you can address it on that one-to-one level. and then take it from wherever it goes from there. So.
We've been able to eliminate a lot of meetings because of it, because there's communication about what's really going on. There's no need to have a meeting, because people would get together once a week and tell each other what they were doing. Well, is there really a need to do that? And most of the time you start talking about things that have no relation whatsoever to work. And, you have people that are late, and people get upset. And there's no need to have a meeting if you don't have a purpose for the meeting, if you don't have goals for the meeting. So
it is kind of funny that with when you go online to hook up with a firm, and you go to their web page and they go, oh yeah, we're all about team, and I don't want to start mentioning names of companies, but larger companies, oh yeah, team positive, and we do this, and we have barbecues, and then you come to find out they don't have none of that. They don't care,
Yeah. Cool. All right. Is anybody want to be respectful of Charles's time? Anybody got any more specific questions?
I do.
Go for it, Jen.
I'll send a copy of the form to you, Trent. Okay.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you.
Yep.
So in terms of if you want to get more candidates, I think that you're looking at more diverse pool of candidates. So more women, more minorities, more, a wider variety of people. Are you looking at anything for your the processes that you've been talking about, interviews and job descriptions and things? Are you looking at those aspects of specifically how can you make it more welcoming for women to apply, for example? I know one of the statistics is that women will tend to apply for a job if they think they have 95% of the qualifications, where men might apply if they have 60% or some number like that. So do you consider those things? When you're saying here, write your job descriptions this way, are you guys looking at, who are we eliminating when we write our job descriptions?
Great question, Jen. Great question.
That's a good question. I don't know that we're eliminating anyone. I think what I'm hearing you say is that they're eliminating themselves. So the question would be, what can we do to actually convince them that they should be applying for the job, that they should feel like they're qualified for the job? Because it's not about lowering the bar. That's not what it's about. Okay, because they are qualified in so many instances. So I think it's figuring out, is there some magic to it? I don't know. I really would love to have some women say, okay, here's how we would reply if you had an ad that said this, if you focused on these competencies. But I don't feel that there's any difference between the competencies between men and women.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you?
Not in the profession, but what can happen is more employers can do and join the state associations and go to job fairs and participate that way, and you can put that out and you can be involved in those type of things, and then you can interact with women that come around and say, hey, what does it take to be this? And
right,
that type of thing. That's how that gets about and gets around. Other than that, if you were just to put on a job posting on Indeed or whatever, it can be men or women. It doesn't make any specification to that. It's just, you have to get these people involved in that. And Trent's, like I said, we're doing it here. Associations, state associations, we have those programs, things like that. That's how that's going to happen, to get more women involved in it. Is, say, here's a great career. Why don't you try to get involved in this? So,
and it goes back to the schools too. The schools need to actually get the word out.
Yeah, for sure.
Just like I said, if you're in Orange County, California, the Santiago College has got their survey program out from August till December. So, and they take anybody. Love to have women.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing, Charles, or everyone, is that letting everybody know that it's not just for men, that this career is for anybody, and getting it out to the schools is what you have to do, because so many, I've got kids in high school and their friends don't know what I do as a surveyor, and I've been in the industry for 26 years and they don't know what it is. So
why don't you write an article?
Exactly.
Who reads
Okay.
articles?
Yeah, it's something that I am working on to try and work out how we can make it known to everybody what the job is. And I also believe that, when you're applying for a job, I don't believe in quotas of anybody. I believe that there is the right person for the job, full stop. I don't think that you should be employing a female because you have to have X amount of females on the job. Sometimes there are positions that probably are a bit more suited for a male candidate, but in the end, it's who's the most suitable for a job.
Yeah,
In
that's right.
California, we used to call that affirmative action.
Well, 30 years ago, I was CEO of a company, and 70% of our senior staff were women.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Because they were the best candidates for the jobs.
Yeah. And I think that's what ultimately, Jen, I think that's what it's going to come down to is, the acceptance of being able to do any position. And it's going to just take, like we talked about early on, company culture or profession awareness. It's not going to happen, I think, unfortunately overnight, but we're eventually going to get there. And I think, we're getting there with, as much as work as Anna's doing on the Women's Surveying Summit and your whole Facebook group that's out there and trying to empower the women, I think is eventually what we're going to get there. It's just still going to take time. It's not going to take a 25-year plan like Charles becoming a president of IBM, but it may still take another 5, 6, 7 years, I think, Jen, before we start to see what the fruits of the labor that are happening today. So,
well, do you think that there's it comes down to, you'll always read that, most guys will apply for a job even if they don't think they have the qualifications. They're just that more confident in applying.
Yeah.
Whereas a female will look at it and go, oh, I don't really have that qualification or that experience, and so I better not apply for it. Whereas other people go, oh, bugger it, I'll give it a go.
See,
Yes.
I was about to say that. I was going to
go for
talk
it.
about confidence also.
Yes.
Because I actually went for a job and got it over a licensed land surveyor, and I wasn't licensed. So it's just about just getting the women to do it, no matter what it says.
Right.
Yeah, exactly, Carrie.
Completely agree.
So let's do an article about women in the industry.
Yeah. I put one together based on the Women's Surveyor Summit. I can share that one with you, Charles, and then Carrie and Peter and Jen. And just, it was a start, and Jolene on here too. It was a start of kind of a follow-up to the Women's Surveyor Summit, but definitely, I think we can find definitely more to add to it. So
yeah, let's promote it.
I know Trent does that, and then also at the chapter meetings we have here in Southern California, Riverside, San Bernardino, Orange County, once a year at least, women in construction is always a speaker at one of the meetings. So, and they promote surveying to their organization as well.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, that's perfect.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for having me, guys. I have to head off, so
Well, thanks for
I've
being
enjoyed
here.
it.
Yeah. Have a good Tuesday.
What
Yeah,
time is
thanks.
it in what time is it in Australia?
But like,
It's now 10:30
yeah.
in Tuesday morning.
Yep.
Peaceful dreams.
All right.
Thank you,
Thanks-
Trent, as
thanks, Peter.
always. Thank you,
Bye.
guys.
Yes.
Thank you, Charles.
Thanks, everybody.
Awesome.
Okay, I'll send you the info, Trent.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Charles. Have a
All
good
right,
night, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Matt.
Charles, good night. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Trent.